Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 4th September 2023. My name is T.S.V. Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. hariboltrsvnectar nectar. The actual name is Hardan, 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 Haribol, TRSV, nectar, nectar. In this particular blog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. It is a mere continuation of all that we have been doing in all my previous videos. So let us continue with the discussion for the topic for today's video. Before that, I request you to kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous and future videos. So let us continue with the topic for discussion of today's video. For the past few videos, we have been discussing about the connection between the three subtle bodies, the Kundalini serpent and Kundalini chakras of the gross body, the three modes of material nature, and the false ego of the human living entity. In that process, we have crossed the introductory part, and in my yesterday's video, we were talking about the Mooladhara chakra, which is the first chakra. We shall continue our discussion with that particular chakra. Though I talked in detail about some aspects of this chakra, I feel that I have not given the complete information about it or have not tried to give the complete information that I have had through my study of scriptures and spiritual books. Kundalini chakra, or the first chakra among the Kundalini chakras, is known as Mooladhara chakra. Mooladhara means in English root chakra, the foundation, the basis of the Kundalini chakras in the gross body of a human living entity. As I had mentioned before, the Kundalini serpent and the seven chakras across the spinal cord of a human living entity are either very subtle or imaginary or both. We cannot see these chakras with our naked eye of the gross body. These can only be experienced by that human living entity who concentrates on this school of thought. In this Mooladhara chakra, the first chakra among the seven, is situated at the base of the gross body of the human living entity. This base in the spinal cord is exactly near the anus of the individual living entity, human living entity. It is just above where the Kundalini serpent of energy is lying dormant, tightly coiled, and waiting to be released. This Kundalini serpent remains dormant till its energy is released by that human living entity through performance of various types of yoga, each yoga being for each of these chakras. For this root chakra or Mooladhara chakra, it is known as Hatha Yoga. Hatha means a sort of persuaded and concentrated effort to activate this energy. Hatha means the obstinate attitude of the human living entity to arouse the energy of the Kundalini serpent. When this concentrated energy of the Kundalini serpent is released through the Hatha Yoga, this serpent wakes up and begins to slither through the tube of the spinal cord, which begins at the anus or root chakra of Mooladhara and ends at the cranium of the same human living entity's gross body. At the cranium is the seventh chakra, the thousand petal lotus of this human living entity known as Sahasrara. Sahasrara chakra is spiritual in nature and is directly in communion with the spirit soul of that particular living entity. We will talk right now about only the Mooladhara chakra. We will appreciate here that in the beginning, right from the birth till the infancy and the babyhood and so on a normal course of life, we living entities, especially human ones, are physical in nature. Generally speaking, almost 75% of the society is living a physical type of life. It seldom goes into the intellectual or cerebral kind of life. It is happy using its own physical vigor, energy, and strength to eke out a living in this society. Same is the case with root chakra. The root chakra or the Mooladhara chakra is totally physical in nature. Previously, we tried to divide the six lower chakras into three pairs of two each. They were Mooladhara chakra and second Swadhisthana chakra. The second pair was the third chakra of Manipuraka and the fourth chakra of Anahata. The third pair was the fifth chakra of Vishuddhi and the sixth chakra of Ajnana chakra or meditative chakra. The seventh Sahasrara chakra is independent and is in direct communion with the spirit soul. So we are going to concentrate only on the two first chakras which form a pair. They are Mooladhara and Swadhisthana. These two chakras are directly connected to the etheric body of senses of the three subtle bodies that are part of the four bodies which entrap the spirit soul. This etheric body of senses is closest to the gross body, which is the fourth layer of the living entity, and hence the vibrations from the etheric body of senses are easier to reach the brain tissue of the gross body of that living entity. Because it reaches faster and is more simple to comprehend and understand, the brain of the gross body likes to or prefers to masticate and chew on vibrations only of the etheric body of senses. The senses are basically five in number. They are sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. The senses of the etheric body are given an outlet into this material world by the gross body of a particular human living entity through five sense organs. These are two eyes for sight, two ears for hearing, two nostrils for smell, one tongue for taste, and the complete skin and genitals for touch. As I said, Mooladhara chakra is basically physical in nature. The average human living entity is happy living a physical life. Hence, 75% of the society spends 99% of its time living a physical and sensuous life only. It does not want to distract itself with the cerebral or mental type of life, feelings, emotions, thoughts, ideas, opinions, logic, etc. Hence, when a person, an average human living entity, tries to grapple with life, he or she goes physical. When this physical Mooladhara chakra is activated through the Hatha Yoga, this Kundalini serpent of energy or reservoir of unlimited energy begins to wake up and slither through the tube of the spinal cord. The first station it reaches is this Mooladhara chakra. In other words, a human living entity has 100% of unlimited energy of this Kundalini serpent at its own disposal when this Kundalini serpent slithers up to its sojourn in the Mooladhara chakra. Because it is physical in nature, hence the living entity concentrates only on physical activity and building up his or her energy, strength, muscle, body, build, looks, beauty, etc. When it comes to men, they like to work on their physique, whereas when it comes to women, it on an average they would like to concentrate on their looks. Now, the second chakra is called the Swadhisthana chakra. The same Swadhisthana chakra is activated by a yoga called Tantra Yoga. Swadhisthana means delicious. That is something which is very enjoyable and palatable to the taste preferences, hobby, pleasure, etc. of that living entity. When this living entity crosses his or her path or his or her limits of going only physical, he or she graduates into enjoying this life. This enjoyment or this pleasure is when a chemical called dopamine is released in the brain of the living entity. This dopamine is usually released when the same living entity enjoys or indulges in his or her favorite hobby or job. It could be lust, sex, sports, or eating or drinking or intoxication, anything which gives pleasure to this particular living entity. Whenever this living entity does something which makes him or her happy, this chemical called dopamine is released from the brain of that particular living entity. This part of life of a living entity is based on that Swadhisthana chakra. As mentioned before, this Swadhisthana chakra is activated by a yoga called Tantra Yoga. After resting in the root chakra of Mooladhara, this Kundalini serpent is poised to travel further. When the living entity practices his or her Tantra Yoga, it again wakes up, stretches itself, and starts traveling till it reaches the second chakra of Swadhisthana. Now we will see these two chakras. We are going to suppose about what will happen if something else happens. As I said, this Mooladhara and Swadhisthana chakras are directly connected to the etheric body of senses. However, if it happens that instead of listening only to the senses, these two chakras listen to the astral mind or astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions, then what will happen? Here I would like to take a detour. According to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has mentioned 5 necessary evils that haunt the lifetime of a living entity, all his or her life, and it plagues the psyche and the brain, thoughts, ideas, views, opinions, actions, karma, destiny, etc. of that particular living entity. These 5 are: first, kama, that is lust; second, krodha, that is anger; third, lobha, that is greed; fourth, moha, that is illusion; and fifth, ahankara, that is ego. We will concentrate on the first of these 5 evils, that is kama. Kama means lust. Lust is the unbridled desire from which every human living entity in this material world suffers in various degrees according to his or her intelligence, experience, maturity, evolvement, destiny, and karma. The lower it is, the higher is the lust, and the higher it is, the lower is this lust. Now we are talking about the majority of people in this society of human living entities. These two chakras, that is the root chakra and Swadhisthana chakra, or Mooladhara chakra and Swadhisthana chakra, are directly or indirectly based on that lust alone. It is because of this lust, this unbridled desire for success or for attaining some superiority, the living entity builds a body, increases his or her strength, beauty, attraction, etc., which is purely physical in nature, and it has a lot to do with the gross body of that living entity alone. You will appreciate that majority of us are attracted to towards the gross body of each of us living entities. The strength, the build, the beauty, the handsomeness, the looks, etc. of a living entity decide on our attitude towards that particular living entity. At that time, we conveniently forget about his or her actual nature, psyche, intelligence, experience, maturity, logic, character, conscience, etc. The first thing that impresses us all is the appearance of that gross body. Because this gross body and its appearance is directly connected to the vibrations of the etheric senses, hence, we individual living entities in the society are impressed or otherwise with the physical looks of another living entity, and we conveniently choose to ignore his or her intrinsic worth. However, if we try to find out whether this person is something else other than his or her looks, we will have to find out whether the Mooladhara chakra and the Swadhisthana chakra of the same living entity is directly or indirectly connected to the vibrations of the astral body of mind or the causal body of intelligence. When we try to concentrate on this and try to focus on this, we are able to understand that particular living entity better. Even in this case, in the case of the same living entity, if he or she tries to ignore the etheric senses in the beginning and tries to look into the astral body of mind and emotions, the same beauty or looks which attracted him to, towards the physical appearance may slightly become emotional or full of feelings. When a person is initially attracted towards another, it is a desire or a greed called lust. We usually get attracted towards a person not because of love but because of lust. Lust is purely physical and sensual in nature. On an average, 90% of the people in this society are attracted to each other only because of the sensual side of life in which we all dwell and in which the etheric senses and its vibrations play a major part. But when the astral mind of emotions and feelings come over, then the same lust gradually turns into love or platonic love. This is actually true love. Here, the living entities, mind, emotions, and feelings are given an equal respect by each other while dealing with that particular living entity. Now, in this case, the physical side of that particular living entity takes a back seat as far as the initial attraction for that living entity is concerned. Here we try to know what this person is feeling or thinking about or is emotionally attached to. This is directly this has directly to do with the heart of the living entity. We shall delve on this matter further in my next video. In this video, I only tried to make you realize how important it is to have our first two chakras, mainly Mooladhara and Swadhisthana, listen to the emotions and feelings of the astral mind. The sensuous, the sensuous side of attraction from the etheric body of senses should not be the criteria for the attraction or otherwise towards another living entity or any other object. The initial physical attraction towards something or someone is infantile or totally immature. If it happens to infants, babies, and children, they are harmless and innocent and are totally ignorant about the vagaries of life. But while we tolerate their attraction, their physical attraction towards other objects, if the same thing grows into the puberty and maturity of the living entity, then all his or her attraction is based on the sensually sexual, lustful nature of life. Here, this person listens only to the etheric senses and not to the other two subtle bodies. When or if this person tries to listen to the astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions, his or her opinions about a particular living entity or an object may certainly change. Here, this particular emotion from this living entity turns from lust to love or platonic love or attraction. We shall continue talking about this aspect in my future video. Please let me know what you think of my talk on this topic in this particular video. Kindly give me your own expert views, thoughts, and ideas so that I may keep reminding you of all my future videos and blend your own ideas, thoughts, opinions, and views with mine for the sake of the society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.